CCWD to order, and I do have a flag. And so if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag,
United States of America,
to the
republic
stands,
which stands
one nation,
God,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
for all.
Smooth.
Okay, did everybody finish? Did everybody finish? It's kind of hard to maintain that. Okay, we have quite a large meeting today. I see Charles is here also, and Damon, and Joel. Okay. Rebecca, if you call the roll.
Okay, Director Ratterman,
Here.
Director Thomas,
Here.
Director Davidson,
Here.
Director Cicada,
Here.
President Underhill.
Here. Go on to item number 2, which is public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. And no action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda, and comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. And I can see him walking up to the podium already, and that would be Eric Glanville, correct?
Yes. Do you want me to go ahead and start?
Yes,
Okay, my name is Eric Glanville. I have been a broker and owner of Gold Country Real Estate in Murphys for over 30 years. I wanted to address the policy of termination of wastewater services. Today we'll be addressing the subdivision of Forest Meadows. I would like to give the board members and staff a brief history of what transpired there.
Wait, is that on the agenda?
So many. You still there?
Is this on the agenda?
No.
No.
I thought there was an item. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. Just make sure that's added to my minutes. No. To give the board members and staff a brief history of what has transpired in Forest Meadows and why there are so many connections there on vacant lots, I'd like to give you the history. Jeff will remember this because he was a board member at the time. Back around 2006, CCWD decided they were going to impose a sewer and water moratorium on lots in Forest Meadows. I don't know the exact reason now, but I think it has something to do with either the leach field for the plant was leaking or the storage pond was filling up. Anyway, there were several builders that owned lots in Forest Meadows, and they knew if the moratorium went into effect, their lots would be unbuildable and have little value. One builder had between 40 to 50 lots. So we met with the CCWD board, and the board agreed that the moratorium would begin on a certain date, and that if a builder or individual turned in building plans to the building department and paid the fees, got the building permit, and brought it over to the water district and paid their fees, they would be issued a sewer and water connection. Well, since these builders all had stock plans, they were able to just go over to the county, get them stamped, pay the fees, come over to the water district, pay those fees, and were issued the connections on between 40 to 60 vacant lots. Shortly after this, one of the builders who owned 40 to 50 lots decided to move his building operations to Southern California, and he sold all of those lots to different individuals who were going to build on them or hold for an investment. Then the Great Recession of 2008, 2009 hit. Building came to a halt, and the lots had very little value. At first, you could turn in your connections and just sign a release and pay to have the water meter removed. But the board changed their mind and administration did away with that. So for the last 10 to 15 years, you were stuck with paying the service fees of over $300 every 2 months. The board did finally come up with a policy to let people terminate their connections last year, which has had several drawbacks, which I mentioned to my email and Bertha, and hopefully you all got a copy of it. I would like to have these items on the next board agenda to discuss some of the issues I have with the new policy. I would also be available to talk with staff about my concerns. According to Joel, there have been approximately 10 people apply for service disconnect, but none have completed the transaction. And after my own clients being told they have to pay a $3,000 capping fee on a sewer lateral that has already been in place and capped for 45 years, I can see why these applications have not gone through. So evidently it has not been a very successful policy. And so I'd like to have the matter brought up on the next board's agenda so we can go over and get this ironed out so the policy will be more consumer friendly. Because the way it is right now, you put the policy out there, but no one can do it. So the board just keeps, or the water district just keeps collecting the fees every other month from these poor people that have been paying for 10 to 15 years. And I'm sure my 3 minutes is probably up.
Can we agendize that at the next engineering committee, or is the board meeting going to be, which is going to be sooner?
Next board meeting would be sooner.
Okay, all right, well then let's agendize it for a board meeting then.
Will do.
Okay, and I have one other comment. There's several items in the policy that don't seem to be right. I mean, if you have if you do disconnect, pay all the fees, and you decide and change your mind and want to connect again, you have to wait 3 years after you disconnect. But if somebody else buys the lot, you will let them immediately connect. That seems kind of punitive to the people who want to disconnect now. Anyway, but we can discuss this.
Yeah, we'll discuss
get
that
it put
all.
on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll discuss that all, Eric, and I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other public comment this morning or this afternoon? And hearing none, we will go on to item 3, the consent agenda.
Move for acceptance.
Okay, I'd like to pull the claim summary. If I could have a motion for approval of 3A, 3B, 3D, and 3E.
Bertha, this is Russ. I'd like to pull item 3D, please.
Oh, 3D, okay.
Okay, move for acceptance of 3A, B, and E.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, do I have any other directors who want to look at the claim summary? Hearing none, I will just go on.
All right, we got to vote. Hold on, we got to vote here.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yes. Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Cicada,
Yes.
President Underhill.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, and I don't have any other directors who have anything on the claim summary. Page number 5, 135168, it's the ERS Industrial Services for $97,563.89. And this was materials for the water treatment plant, and that's in Hunters. And I just want to make sure that I wanted to ask, how much more are we going to be using or asking for the?
Yeah, President Underhill, this is Michael. That's an item that I believe the total contract amount is around $480,000. It's to completely refurbish both filters at the, this is the item where we had initially budgeted $400,000 because we thought that would be the cost of refurbishing one filter, and we would do the next filter next year. And we were able to get a contractor that could do both filters for $480,000. So there will be more charges to come on that. My understanding from Damon and Jesse is that the progress is on schedule and going very well.
Oh, great.
That's correct.
So our total cost will be, what did you say, 480?
It's around 480. It might be 478, I think, or something like that.
Okay, so this is just part of it.
That's right.
Thank you. Page number 7. I keep seeing the Paymentus charges going up, the cost for the Paymentus system, because if I remember correctly, we were so happy that they were going to be able to do that for us for $4,000, and now it's up to, what did I see, 7,000?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. This is Rebecca. So that is actually something that we've recognized as well. And part of this is the latest contract that was signed last year.
Excuse me. I hear a lot of bubbling going on.
Yeah, anyone who's not speaking, can you please mute your line? Thank you.
Okay, that's better. In the last contract that was signed last year, there were some increases associated with their service. Additionally, we identified that they weren't charging us for a, they're called non-qualified credit cards. So those would be those like award credit cards that you get, where you get points. So those have a higher percentage of transaction fees than others. So we're getting charged, I want to say it's between $700 and $900 a month just for those. And that didn't start happening until maybe like October, November, December. So we had noticed that in fact was going to be higher, pretty significantly higher than what we had been seeing, but we recognize that and we have been watching that. And we've been in communications with them to see if there's things that we can do on our end to figure out how we can get some of those costs to go down a little bit. But yeah, those are the costs, and those are all included in their contract.
But you're steadily, or you're watching it just to see what kind of an increase we keep getting, or if there's any way that we can...
Yeah, we're watching to identify if there's things that we could do to kind of shift the cost. So for instance, it is less expensive for customers, for us, it's less expensive for customers to pay via ACH, so withdraw from their checking account, than it is for them to pay with a credit card. So we're trying to identify if there's a way that we could do some outreach to customers to pay their bills and do auto payment through their checking account as opposed to using a credit card, because that would save us quite a bit of money actually. But outside of that, there's not a ton of wiggle room on that Paymentus contract.
Rebecca, this is Cindy. Oh.
Sorry, Cindy. I just wanted to add that another thing is the more people use Paymentus, the more fees we have. So the more popular it gets, it continues to increase the cost as well, which is kind of a double-edged sword.
Okay, so Rebecca, when somebody uses Paymentus with a credit card, there's a fee. Is there another way that they can use a credit card and not allow the cards that have those rewards? You know, limit it to like a debit card or something?
I believe like a debit card would be less expensive. We wouldn't get that non-qualified or unqualified expense.
Well, this is why MSD doesn't accept credit cards because of the fees. You can't control them. And I may have brought this up, a year or so ago when I first came on the board, because I could see how expensive that is. But would it be something that CCWD could consider, not using a credit card for one-time payments or auto payments? I forget. I think one-time payments are okay, but because you could charge a fee. But if you have an auto pay set up with a credit card, you can't charge a fee for that, correct?
Well, we have it set up where we're in an absorbed model. So our model with Paymentus is that we absorb all the fees, the district does. There's other agencies that don't absorb the fees and they actually pass on all or some of the fees onto the customers. So if a customer was going to use a more expensive method of payment, they would pay their share of that transaction. But that's not what that's not what we did. But we do have to identify, there's a breaking point in that cost model for us that we have to try to figure out if there's a way that we can get it down or we can kind of get it in line, because it just seems to consistently go up every month.
Right. And looking at that, I think we should either take it up at another meeting, but discuss making a change to how we accept credit cards, if at all, a fee or whatnot. Perhaps we could talk about that in the finance committee meeting.
Yeah, I can put that on as an item to discuss.
Because of course we realize that the more our customers use their credit card, they get their extra points or they get their bonuses or whatever. So it is a double-edged sword.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. My third one was on page number 9. Number 135323, and this is the Western Hydrologics, and it says the favorite words water rights, and I wanted to know specifically what water rights we're talking about.
So that's an item our longtime consultant Jeff Meyer and I have been working on. We hope to have it ready for closed session for this board meeting, but if not, I would anticipate bringing it to the board in next meeting's closed session.
Okay, that's fine then. Okay, then Russ, you wanted to discuss?
Yes, if we could go to the page that shows the investment transactions. Okay, Rebecca, could you give me an explanation about what that full call designation means on that Wells Fargo bank certificate of deposit item?
Yeah, so it basically means, so when you do a CD, there's a term date on it. So the term date came up. So it basically did a full call and now it's sitting in money market with Wells Fargo. So what we're going to do is we are going to take that, and we haven't done it yet, but we're going to take that 2 million and we're going to actually transfer the money into our Umpqua account so that we can transfer the money to LAIF, because LAIF will make more than money market. But we didn't want to redeposit that $2 million in a CD because we wanted to start consolidating all of the kind of pots of money that we have out there so that we can utilize LAIF and Chandler.
Okay, that makes sense. I just hadn't seen that term before, but the Wells Fargo account was only making about, or that CT was making 1%. So I think LAIF is doing better. So good move. Thank you.
I have a question for Rebecca. Just a hypothetical. Considering the state of the state, should we be concerned about the state that money again from Leif?
You know, I'm always a little concerned on when the state gets into a pinch of what they're going to look for in terms of borrowing sources.
Right.
But the strategy at this point is we will earn the most interest income off of Leif. So at this point, the longer we can ride out Leif over the next few months, because we think it's going to bottom out here where interest is so puny that at that point, that's when we can start crossing over into a different portfolio scheme where we're looking for longer term investment opportunities, which will actually then start giving us what we want through Chandler. So we're just we're in this like predicament right now where Leif is the least risky option with the highest return, albeit relatively low at this point with the market doing what it's doing.
Well, I just want to kind of have a backup plan.
Yeah.
If you at least just have it in the back of your head, because you know it's likely something's going to change. So I just want to be I want to have you all have thought of it and have a backup plan if it happens.
Okay.
Rebecca, from what I understand, the state cannot borrow against a pot of funds if you have it earmarked in your in your policy. So if we have all of our funds earmarked or most of it to keep the amount they could take if they wanted to borrow, do we have that already set up?
Some of that is already set up and some of that we need to clean up a little bit. So that's also something that I'm working on with Carlos from Chandler to identify those gaps in our investment policy where we would be able to kind of close that up.
Is that something, I mean, for protection for the short term, could we revise the policy, bring it to the finance committee and then to the full board just to say where it goes, whether it's, you know, construction or what have you, you know what I mean? So we don't have a large amount that they could borrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in the short term, do it and then use Chandler to make the long-term plan. Okay.
Okay. Are any other issues any directors have?
I move for acceptance of 3C and 3D.
I'll second that.
Okay. Rebecca?
Okay. Director Retterman?
We have public comment on.
Sorry.
How do you know?
Wait, we should ask because they were pulled. I don't know that there's anyone that wants to comment, but the rules.
Yeah. Do I have any public comment? Okay, hearing none.
Okay. Director Retterman?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes. Okay, we'll go on to new business. Item 4A. It's the discussion regarding the district's COVID-19 response, and this is Mr. Michael Minkler.
Yeah, good afternoon, board and President Underhill. I'm pleased to be reporting from our headquarters in San Andreas. I've been in more and more over the last couple of weeks, probably on average 2 days a week over the last 3 weeks. And increasingly the department heads are here as well. There's probably 5 or 6 of us here today. So there's an increasing amount of activity in the office while we're still maintaining most of our social distancing and remote work practices. There's certain things that we really need to do in person, and you know, that work is happening. The plan going forward, I think the main, the main focus now is getting back to work at a more normal operation than what we've been in for the last few months. So we have been working with the department heads on a plan to bring back the office staff starting Monday, gradually though. So it'll probably work out to about half of our office staff in the office on any given day. The main concern right now, our office is, as you're all familiar with, actually, it's not like we're in close quarters here. So we're fairly well, we're able to maintain social distance even when we are back in the office. It's the common areas where there's potential cause for concern. So we're trying to keep the number of people down for the time being, but still get as many as we can back in the office. I know staff are very anxious to get back in the office for the most part. But we want to do it gradually and monitor the progress of things as we move forward. And so those plans are in place to start on Monday. It's been fairly good news in Calaveras County. That one of the reports we got last week was a concern that as restrictions loosen, that you might see a surge in rural areas as mobility increased across the state. And so there was potentially a surge, that they might see this week. And so far that hasn't happened. As of this morning, the update from public health is still 13 cases in Calaveras County, and all 13 have recovered, and we haven't had a new case in a few weeks now. So we want to be cautious, and but we also are. I think everybody's eager to get back into the office. I will say the work of the district has continued throughout this time. Staff has been incredible at being flexible. Everybody has been busy. We've gotten a lot of work done over this period of time, even under less than ideal circumstances. So, I think our staff deserves a tremendous amount of credit for stepping up under difficult circumstances and keeping the business of the district going and operations going, really without a hitch. So, I think we can all acknowledge that we're more productive, and there's things that you can't replace from working in person, but we've done the best we can over these last few months, and I think staff have done a great job. So that's about it for my COVID-19 update, but happy to entertain any questions from the board.
Michael, is our front doors open starting Monday as well?
No, we're still closed to the public, and kind of waiting until the stages of Governor Newsom's reopening. Haven't reopened offices to the public yet, and while as an essential business, we don't necessarily have to wait for the governor, but I think that the approach I've taken is that as long as there's we're able to maintain the continuity of business operations in the district, we're going to err on the side of caution and adhere to the guidelines, and we'll open that back up when those things start to open up more broadly. I don't have a date for you yet on that.
Is the normal that most water districts are closed to the public right now?
I know that MSD and UPUD are. However, if someone comes to the door and has to pay cash, we kind of keep the door between us and we exchange, money, come back in, give them a receipt, and then we don't let them in the office. So those are two that I know of.
But it seems to me that we have at the very least probably one of the best barriers between the public and the staff. I mean, how is the interaction with walk-in bill payment going?
We're not accepting
People that still want to come pay cash. How many people come to the door and walk away each day, or are there any?
I mean, I think we had relatively low foot traffic before. Joel, I don't know if you have a sense for that question.
Yeah, so Director Davidson, we generally get anywhere from 1 to 5 people a day. Sometimes we get 0. It's very low, and it's not having a huge impact on the majority of our customers to not have the front office open.
Are they able to pay outside? Is there a drop box for them?
Yes, there's a secured drop box that they can drop money into, although we do ask that they don't drop cash in there, but they can drop checks in there, no problem.
So we're not having any problem with anybody that walks up and wants to pay cash?
Well, I can't say that because we just aren't there to see how many people come up. I'm just basing this off of how many people came in the past.
But you're right, Director Davidson, we do have, as far as public lobbies go, ours is probably already on the safer side. So, you know, I think once, you know, next week we gradually bring people back into the office, and I think the rest of it will be soon to come after that.
Yeah, I just don't see much of a risk there in regards to outside traffic. So I want to encourage you guys to open it up to the public as soon as you can. And because we are essential, I don't think we should be waiting around for the governor to tell us that it's okay. You guys talk amongst staff and come up with a solution.
Yeah, that has been our approach. Like I said, we're not subject to those orders. It's our decision is based on the ability to maintain our business and our operation.
And Joel, you're saying that usually no more than half a dozen people come into the office?
Yes, Director Underhill, that would be a busy day for us. The only times when we see some level of traffic is on a due date or a lock-off date, something of that nature, where folks may have scraped some cash together and want to come in and pay to prevent a lock-off from taking place. But even then, it really is only a handful of people.
Okay, well.
Michael, this is Cindy. When you start, having the office staff come back in, do they have an option to come back to work? Like, say, for instance, one of them feels that they're a high risk. So if they decide they don't want to come back in, they wouldn't have to, I would imagine, and then they would just file for, like the furlough or unemployment, because I imagine everybody's still getting their pay, working from home and whatnot. But do they have that option to not come in?
I'm glad you brought that up, Director Cicada. That's a great point. They actually don't have the option to come in. So for folks that fall into those high-risk categories, we're not bringing them back into the office yet. But they're not furloughed. They are working from home as staff has been all along. And we have, regular contact with them. We've set them up to be able to work remotely. And I know some of them, even that fall into that high-risk category, are very eager to get back into the office and stir crazy, but they're able to keep working full-time remotely. And so the plan is for those folks that fall into those categories to continue working remotely until we open back up fully.
So at this point, if you say they have to come back, they have to come back unless they fall into one of those high-risk categories.
Yeah, or if, and there is expanded FMLA and other leave options that are available to employees if they have, you know, for example, right now, one issue we may come across is, you know, kids being out of school and summer programs that kids would otherwise participate in. You know, parents may need to be home for childcare purposes, and there are expanded leave options available for that. And so we would have some flexibility to work with folks.
Michael, on the customer service side, is somebody fielding calls that come in? Like, does the answering machine answer it or the answering service, and then they forward it to one of the customer service clerks?
Joel, do you want to take that one, or Rebecca?
Yeah, so what we've done is during our normal office hours, even though people may be working from home, they the calls will roll to voicemail, and then those voicemails will be responded to the day that we get them.
Awesome.
The issue we're running into is customers don't want to leave a voicemail, and then they get frustrated because they keep calling back and they want a live person.
Yeah.
But
We don't have an answering system, like an
have an-
answering service for the office.
we do, but when we have customer service representatives all available to answer calls, they can just answer the voicemails that come in. There wasn't a way for us to, even with the answering service, they would have to take a message and then forward the message to a customer service rep. So it's not like they could just forward the call, because we have people working on cell phones or their home phones.
Right.
So
Well,
our
with
way of
how
doing it,
how often are they checking the voicemail?
we had as it set up, so the voicemails actually go to an email box that
Great.
is monitored all day long, right in front of customer
Perfect, yeah.
service reps. So they were able to grab that. So there was never an issue where it only went to one customer service. We could actually get them where, and then if whoever was on call and monitoring that box, they could forward it to another CCWD.
That's good. Thank you.
Somebody, excuse me, somebody needs to turn off their phones. Oh, thank you. Rebecca, what is the message to our customer about how soon they will be responded, or they will get a response?
I think we updated the message because we were finding that people would not leave a message and they would just keep calling back. So we did amend the message so that it said, please leave a message and we will get back to you. I don't remember if it says as quickly as possible or by the end of the day, or I can't remember the verbiage, but we did want to remind people that we will respond to their message, but they need to leave a message.
Right, right. Okay. So then that wraps it up for our 4A.
Yeah, unless there's any other questions for the board, like I said, we're eager to get back to work and get things opened up again. So that's the direction we're going in.
Okay.
Bertha, if I could make one comment on that.
Certainly.
If employees, at least half of them, like Michael said, that not all, but maybe half, are going to be showing up for work Monday, it would be really an unfortunate circumstance if the parking lot is half full and somebody comes in and they want to sign up for some kind of new service, or not necessarily to pay a bill, but just need to get information, and they get turned away at the door. I just the day before yesterday, I went to the building department in Calaveras County, and there was a note that says knock on the door and somebody will come and talk to you. And they said, "Do you have an appointment?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And so I was let in. They're letting two people at a time into their counter. I don't think that we need to be any more restrictive than that.
Okay, we'll revisit that, and I'll circle back with the department heads and see if we want to reconsider that.
Even a note on the door that says, and we apologize for the inconvenience. If you'll call us on your cell phone, we are anxious to talk to you. We're trying to keep you safe and all of the above. But it just we don't need to increase our bad reputation. We need to improve our reputation as being available and willing to work with people. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
I appreciate the input. That's well taken, and like I said, we'll revisit that.
Okay.
Okay. We will now go on to item 4B, which is the discussion action regarding Pine Brook Homeowners Association variance request. This is.
We should ask for public comment on 4A
Excuse
before.
me. Oh, any public comment on 4A? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go on to 4B and okay, Joel?
Yes, Madam President, thank you. I have been relegated to my back porch because my daughter Kate is sleeping. So if it's too noisy, I'll try to get back in the house. So please let me know if you can hear me okay. Is it okay so far?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So this item comes from a discussion that we've been having with the Pine Brook Homeowners Association. And this actually stemmed from an application that was filed to terminate 2 meters. That's not the subject of today's variance request, but that's how we got to come to know about the violation. And so just very shortly to summarize, what Pine Brook and CCWD realized is that the association is currently using 1 commercial water meter to irrigate 2 separate parcels. And that is a violation of CCWD's policy. In looking into this in greater detail, there is a long history, according to Pine Brook, of them having this type of configuration for their plumbing, for their irrigation of their recreational area managed by the HOA. And that dates back to the 60s, according to Pine Brook. In 1988, CCWD annexed Pine Brook and put some new main lines in there to serve them, installed some additional water meters as well. However, according to Pine Brook, the practice of irrigating multiple parcels with 1 water meter did continue. That plumbing configuration continued all the way through until today and continues today. And so when this came to my attention, I did inform Pine Brook and its representative, Mr. Dale Pilgrim, who's with us today, that this was a violation and it would need to be corrected. And so Mr. Pilgrim looked into what it would cost to merge those 2 lots that were both being used. And he did look into that cost, and it came out to be $4,000+, which is a pretty big lift for a small HOA like Pine Brook. He also looked into potentially reconfiguring some of the plumbing to bring the different irrigation systems onto their own lots. However, that also was going to be expensive. And so we did inform Mr. Pilgrim that if he would like to come to the board and request a variance from the policy, he did have the ability to ask the general manager to put this on the agenda. And so you will see attached to this item a very detailed summary from Mr. Pilgrim of what the history is according to Pine Brook and what they're asking for. And so staff did review this in great detail. And after talking about it as a management team, we came to the conclusion that we would simply look at the variance policy that the board recently adopted And that really looks at four things, whether the variance would discriminate in favor or against any applicant to the detriment of any other district customer, whether it would have any effect of establishing substandard facilities or services or cause the district to have unreasonable cost, whether it's consistent with the district's obligation to put water to beneficial and reasonable use, and whether granting the exception is the best way to achieve a fair result for the applicant without imposing undue costs on other customers. So in this case, staff reached the conclusion that we feel that it is an appropriate variance to grant, given the history of Pine Brook and the lack of any cost that this would put on any other customer. We don't see a harm in doing this financially. The one caveat to that we did point out in the memo is that having the policy where you can only have 1 meter for one lot, that's a very important and critical policy. And we would not want this variance to set a precedent for other customers to try to also do this in other circumstances. We feel this is very unique, and really this decision only applies to this exact set of circumstances. We can't have people using 1 meter and serving their neighbors who may not be customers on separate lots. And so in closing, we put this before the board, and only if the board feels that this would not set a bad or dangerous precedent, be detrimental to other district customers, do we recommend approving the variance. And then I would just note that there are other issues with staff is still reviewing, namely the 2 termination of service requests. Those are still in the process of being reviewed, and we will reach a conclusion on that fairly soon, we believe. And then also whether the size of the meters are appropriate for the level of irrigation that they have. We're also reviewing that, but we really want to keep those issues separate from today's discussion. Today, we're just focusing on this variance request regarding 1 meter irrigating 2 separate parcels. We do have Mr. Pilgrim here. I do believe that he would like to make some comments as well. I'd be happy to take any questions that the board has now or after Mr. Pilgrim makes his statement.
I have a question, Joel. When, I don't know if Pine Brook started the variance request, or I forget what you said, but did you charge them a deposit to look into it? Because don't you do that for other people?
That's a really good question. We did not charge Pine Brook a deposit for this request because it was put in prior to the update to the variance policy. And so we had no policy asking for a deposit at the time of the variance submission.
Okay, thank you.
Joel, I have a question also. It's clear in looking at the map that the only person who would see 2 lots in that map would be the county assessor. Right? It's since 1960 and before, it's been 1 lot with their facilities spread across the common line. But is there any wisdom in considering putting up like a conditional sentence in this agreement or the variance, so that if 40 years from now the circumstances at Pine Brook changes and somehow somebody wants to come along and put a hotel on one of those lots, that they would be, or not a hotel, but a single family residence, that it would flag it so that you'd have to put in another meter on that, the lot, they could no longer continue to use the 1 meter?
If the board feels that would be a stronger, more concrete case for this variance, certainly we could add something in there. And I do believe that the way it is worded now is it is specifically referring to Pine Brook. And if it did change hands, then it would no longer be Pine Brook. However, we want to make sure that this is as clear as possible. So if the board feels that's important, we could certainly add something in if you'd like.
Well,
I agree with Russ.
go ahead.
I agree with Russ on that count. If they're 2 separate lots, if you're going to approve this variance, there should be a stipulation that if it does change hands, that they get their own meter.
You've got to, if the facilities that are built upon that property line go away in the future, 40 years, 50 years, I mean, we can't be thinking in terms of just weeks or months. I just think that it should be a small sentence that says, "Oh, by the way, if circumstances on this one or the other lots of these lots changes, then the variance, the opportunity in the variance would be withdrawn."
Because you could put a statement about how long that, you know, the use was, or we started using that 1 meter since this was established back in the 60s. I think that's what I heard. This is what we approve of, and any variance on that condition, you know, violates our policy. Something to that effect.
But we've got a lawyer on staff.
Oh. And I bet his name is Matt.
Well, no, I was thinking about Michael. Matt, Matt.
So my thought is, and Matt can chime in here too, but I think that's a great catch. That's a great suggestion. I think we add as a part of the resolution, you know, therefore be it resolved. And I think probably the wording is that if the land use on these parcels changes, or one of the parcels is, one or both of the parcels is transferred to a new owner and used for a different purpose, then the variance would be rescinded, and the new owner would have to reapply for the variance or establish a new connection.
Well, I agree, Michael, and the reason that I'm concerned about this is that we need to check that box that says that in doing this, we're not opening a door for anybody to take advantage of this little loophole. So anyway, that I'll leave it to your judgment about how to change the wording.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do I have any other comments from any other directors?
The one thing I guess I would say, we do have some language in there that limits this to the existing irrigation system. So I'm not sure if that quite covers it, but I think adding some language just to clarify that this is limited to the existing land uses, the land use changes, or the property owner changes, the variance would be rescinded.
I like it.
Okay. Do I have any comments from Damon? From a field aspect?
No, I've discussed this with Joel and Michael earlier, and that makes sense to me as well.
Okay. And so it probably is time for Dale, if he'd care to address the board.
This is in the document, in the map, and again, we're only addressing right now the issue associated with developed the system 50 or 60 years ago. I can only say that in general, this is a common area of Pine Brook, and there's 9 parcels total, of which there are 8 on the south side here of Flanders. And all through those years, obviously, the developers who put in this case, there's just 2 faucets that are across the other side of the boundary, and there's pieces of the lawn. Weren't aware, obviously, of any CCWD. In fact, well, CCWD wasn't the water system in those days, any restrictions. So this kind of, as Joel said, came out as a side potential issue when we looking at getting rid of 2 meters that we have not used on 2 of the parcels. So this was kind of as he explained, a solution, but we didn't have a cost-effective solution for getting compliance here for the 2 faucets that serve the picnic area there and a few pieces of the lawn, other than to disconnect all the water surface for the 2 faucets that serve drinking water, as well as small pieces of the lawn, as you can see on the map, other than combined. And I would say historically, to make sure you understand completely, there actually was that meter 3 on the map fed facilities on 3 lots. There was a side that was part of the ball field lot, and it had a drip system when the young trees were planted back 50, 60 years ago. That has not been connected up or operating, as far as I know, for the last 40 years, once the trees got mature. And the squirrels and the rodents took care of any drip lines we had. So that's why the focus was on these 2 particular parcels out of the 8 parcels on this side of the street. And we were hoping to get a solution from you folks, given that I think we got a case of history here, and I can understand writing stuff you want about if there's any future change. If any of you have been involved in a subdivision getting rid of an HOA, or the county reviewing lots that are not taxed today, and just the dissolution of it probably would be something I wouldn't want to go into, even from a legal perspective. But at this point, that's all fine as far as any conditions you want to place on it. We don't have any plans for any changes, particularly on the watering system, except we'll be reducing the lawn by half. We're going to be installing a playground area for kids just off the map to the right side of that, where the lawn area is today. And that's not on the parcel to the left where the 2 faucets are. This is on the main parcel where the lawn is. So I'm just asking for the support, given that to spend the money instead of on recreation for the owners of properties here, and giving it to combine lots, or to remove water capabilities for the faucets in the picnic area, does not seem like a very cost-effective, or let's call it a good solution for the residences and for the property owners. So I just can only ask for your support, and making sure that you also are comfortable in however you carve this out, so that this doesn't set a precedence or create an issue for any future or present situations that may exist out there. You can find one like ours, that would be very interesting, but I don't think the history goes back very far for most of them. So we go back about 50 or 60 years ourselves with this. So thank you for your time and consideration on it. I'm sure we appreciate your support.
Do we have any other directors who, or anyone interested in making a comment?
Bertha, this is up in your realm of the county.
Right.
You're in favor of this, are you not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that Dale has been investigating and coming up with all sorts of plans, and looking at all the possible problems he could have with this, because he's been the president of the Homeowners Association for several years. And so Pine Brook is just really a real permanent homeowners association, as he's talking about. And so I'm very pleased that Dale has taken the time to come to appeal to the board, and I'm wholeheartedly in favor of voting for this variance.
Okay, are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to move that we grant this variance to the rules and regulations governing the furnishing of water and or wastewater service, Article 4, Section 35, domestic service inside improved districts, to the Pine Brook Homeowners Association, subject to the small modification that we discussed earlier.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is this where I ask for a public comment? Hearing none. If you'll call the roll.
Okay, Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Davidson. Oh, you're on mute, Jeff. Let me.
Yes.
Okay. Director Cicada
Yes.
and President Underhill.
Yes.
Congratulations, Dale.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll be back. We, just so you're aware, I'll be sending a letter to Bertha. There's a, and this has not have to do with the variance. This is to clarify something separate, but in the process of looking at possibly disconnecting or removing 2 meters that aren't used, that we've started down that path. I'll document the consideration, the fact that another new news item has kind of hit us now, and that's the estimated process and cost for actual removal, because the assumption we had when it started was this is kind of like shutting off your water. You go and you put a padlock across the thing and then get rid of the meter if you want to reuse it or something else. And now we're talking about proposals that you guys have between $2,000 to $4,000 of removing all the infrastructure that would exist, which I guess would mean tearing up the roads and taking the source back to the main line, which for us wouldn't matter for these lots. So
Let's move
I'm
on.
sure you're going to be talking to Michael about that.
yes,
Yeah, President Underhill, that item's not on the agenda right now, but it will
No,
be.
that's,
It will be at the next board meeting. I do want to just thank Dale. I know these things are never as simple as we would like them to be, and he's always patient with us and provided us with ample documentation and information every time we've asked for information. So thank you for that, Dale, and we'll be addressing that that other item at the next board meeting.
as I say, if you want anything investigated, Mr. Dale Pilgrim is your man. Thank you, Dale.
all right, well, thank you all for your time.
Okay, moving on to old business. Discussion regarding district's new operations maintenance facility bid results and options moving forward. Mr. Charles Palmer. Charles?
Hi, this is actually Kevin, Madam President.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to present on this today.
Thank you.
Even during this COVID-19 ordeal that we've been going through, we were able to get the bid out on April 17th for the operation and maintenance facility project. Unfortunately, the bid results came in much higher than we expected, and they're too high to move ahead at this point. We were getting with we spoke with the low bidder, Roland Construction, about possibly value engineering the project to bring the cost-effective project to the board for approval. We went through a number of items to eliminate and modify the existing plans, but we were unable to get the cost to where we could bring it to the board. So the staff recommends that this project be postponed until at least spring of 2021, after this financial uncertainty is passed. And then we're going to we go through a discussion on the possible cost savings measures moving forward with this project. I think we're all in agreement this project, if we get it for the right price and at the right time, it provides a substantial benefit to the district now and also in the future. And then we looked into possible project sequences and schedules where we could build the project in various phases. The next slide, please. So some of the cost savings measures that we looked at going forward, we look at soliciting bids to buy the building directly from the manufacturer. This would secure us the lowest possible pricing for the base building. Another option that we looked at is reducing the size of the building with the ability to expand in the future. and this design could fulfill the immediate need for the mechanics shop area. And then they looked at different options for the design, how we could maximize the benefit by value engineering it. So we're going to look at different economical cost saving options. And then we looked at possibly dividing the construction, the bid into phases. They can be completed by individual trades, thereby avoiding the prime contractor supervision. This project that was bid was divided into 3 separate schedules, and most of the bidders were prime contractors, where we expected that we would get smaller contractors doing individual items of work. So going forward, the proposed project schedule and sequence, we looked at possibly starting phase 1, February of 2021. This staff would develop a grading plan to reduce the footprint of the building to 1 acre or less. This would save on a lot of stormwater and the grading costs. And then we could solicit contractors that would only do the grading, paving, and the concrete work. And then going from there, we'd go into phase 2 in the spring of 2021. This is where we would purchase the metal building directly from the metal building manufacturer. It would come with engineered drawings from them. And then we could solicit bids for the metal building assembly. And then the site utilities like sewer, water, and electrical can be done by the CCWD staff, or we could solicit a minor contract for a local utility contractor to complete the work. And then finally, phase 3 could be done in the physical year of 2021 and 2022. This would be where we complete the interior electrical, the plumbing, and other tenant improvements. The scope of work in this phase would depend on what funds we have at that time for items such as the interior office spaces. So moving forward, the staff would continue working through the project redesign. We'd go back to the engineering committee and look at it through that venue. And then we could reassess the financial situation mid-year for a budget review. That's kind of an overview of what we're looking at.
Kevin, this is Cindy. What was the original engineer's estimate for the project prior to it going out to bid?
We were around $800,000, but that so we're substantially over that amount. Like we said, we had the prime contractors that bid the rolling construction was a low bidder on the entire project. So
if you were to break it down in phases, which I think sounds like a great idea, what would be a cost estimate on that? Do you have it?
Yeah, we haven't done a finalized cost estimate, but our goal was to get near that $800,000 item. There was a lot of, in the original, without digging too deep into the cost, there was the prime contractor that bid the job had a lot of subcontractors there, and they had substantial markup on it. We can avoid that cost by buying this building directly and then hiring individual trades that would do that individual item of work. That way we can maximize the cost.
So you were still thinking by breaking it down to phases and doing the purchasing and hiring yourselves, it would still be at 800,000 or less?
Yeah, I think that would be where we would, we talked about in the memo, we talked about they're using the first $300,000 that's already authorized to get the grading done and the building purchased. And then depending on how much money we have left, we can look at the final erection in the interior space from there.
Okay. And then your goal for having the mechanics get to use this space as soon as possible. That would be after your phase 3, so at the end of fiscal year 22, give or take.
Well, yeah, the general idea would be to get the building up in phase 2, and then have it where you could start using it. But then in phase 3, you would have the complete the interior space for them. So it'd be somewhere between 2 and 3 where we could actually start using it.
Okay, thank you.
I had a couple of questions for you, Kevin. Value engineering, that's not a company. This was at the beginning of your presentation?
No, sorry, I didn't make that very clear. The value engineering we went into, that was just the way we look at the project. So this project had a number of line items there, and we did that semi-intentionally to if the project came over bid, we could identify items in the cost for those items to eliminate scopes of work that we could live without. So we went through that and identified the cost, and then brought that to the contractor and we tried to work with them to bring it down closer to our original estimate, but we didn't feel like that we were getting far enough along with that cost savings.
Okay. Now, my second question has to do with the fact that you're going to be completing certain items in the building towards a buildup of a finished product. Does someone have to have a construction contract or be a construction company or have a business in order to get those approved?
No, you can buy there's manufacturers that provide the building. You can buy it directly from the manufacturer, and that comes with the engineered drawings. And we would have to design the foundation based on the building manufacturer. So it would, in the first phase of the work, we would solicit bids for building the fill, where you're going to place the building on, and then building the concrete pad. So that concrete pad would be designed by us, or we would find a geotechnical engineer to help us with some of the more complicated foundation design portions of the work. But that would be. Go ahead.
Well, Kevin, I just kind of want to interject. This is Jeff. Actually, the process will be you'll have before you get you'll have to make a commitment by some metal building company to purchase, if not a building, at least a engineered set of plans, and you can do that for less than 10% of the building cost. If you come up with a final design, and just to let the board know, and I meant to send it to staff, I never got around to doing it, but I resubmitted that building as we planned it before. And while the contractors that did this project for us, I believe just the building package price was $178,000 in that vicinity. I can't quite read that, but my cost on that exact same building just last week was $88,000. And also, you're looking here, if you look down the spreadsheet at the mobilization of $152,000, we won't have that cost if we do our own project. But getting back to my original point, Star Buildings, and I'm sure other building companies do this, you can buy a building. There's two ways to purchase a building. You can buy it for production, which means as soon as you give them a deposit, they're going to begin to do all the engineering, and they're going to start building that building in a plant someplace, and it's going to come exactly how you ordered it. The other way to go about purchasing a building is to buy it on approval, and the company that I sell buildings for will allow you, and I'm sure others will do this too, will allow you to purchase just the plans. And a lot of bigger buildings will do this to make sure that they get through the permit process without any significant changes. And then once And I think you can get a set of plans done for probably $5,000. And that'll give you all the engineering, all the specs. It'll be a set of plans that you can actually design your foundation plan by. But you won't be able to design your foundation until you make a commitment of some sort to a building. And there's different ways to do it. There's a very inexpensive way, which is to buy the building on approval. And then again, they'll send you all the engineering, everything you need. They'll send you the same package as if you bought it for production. The only difference is they're not going to build the building until you give the final approval. And then even your deposit will come off the purchase price. Now, the purchase price will change if the market changes, but usually that's not significant. And so anyway, that's just kind of how it would go. The site plan, if we could come up with a dimension of and have it be expandable, we can get a building manufacturer for very reasonably to set up the detailed plans that we need. Then we can design a foundation. We can put the foundation out to bid by itself, and then we can purchase the building by itself, and then we can hire an erection contractor to erect the building, being our own general contractor. And then the interior and those sort of things, we can inch those along as a budget allows. But I mean, there were staff threw in everything but the kitchen sink. Actually, they did throw in the kitchen sink, and certainly it did the storm drains and standing seam roofing and the overhangs on the building were not necessary things, and we could certainly cut costs if we ended up with a standard building. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I mean, I still have us being able to build this building, the foundation, the building package. Let's just say we paid $125,000 for that building package. I guarantee you, these other manufacturers are in the same price range that I'm at, because metal buildings are mainly sold by the pound, and their buildings don't weigh any less or any more than the buildings that I would put up. And so, I mean, I still have $125K for the building, $100,000 for the foundation. If we go at because prevailing wage, that's almost $11 a square foot, and then I put another $100K in to erect the building, which is way above normal. And so we're at $325, and we have a building with no electric in it, but it has everything else that we wanted. And that was the 60 by 160 building. If we reduced that to 100 by 60 with the ability to expand 60 feet at a later date, we could even bring it down farther than that. So that's my 2 cents worth on this.
This is Cindy. You know, I thought when we were talking about this, Jeff, what he just said was exactly what we were going to be doing within reason. So,
yeah.
Did the engineering committee, which is Jeff and Russ, I believe, did they get to see the RFP and this list of what you have prior to you submitting it? And I don't necessarily need an answer, but can Jeff and Russ Engineering Committee, can you work with engineering to kind of put together exactly what Jeff just said? Because I thought it was going to be around that 350,000 as well.
So this is
a lot of this is site work. There's well, how much was the site work alone?
500,000.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we're looking at things like, you know, the earthwork was site construction. That's 161,000. Chain link fence is 20,000.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
40,000. I mean,
Jeff, I want to build that 30-foot wide ornamental gate, 30-foot wide for $1,000 a lineal foot. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good price.
Well, again, now we staff did, you know, I remember going over the building. I must have missed all these details because I I didn't pay close enough attention, I guess, about the gates and the fencing and the, again, I was hoping to get in and do the bare bones building that we needed and then, inch this along as our budget saw fit. So I'm still convinced that we can do this. I think we need to go back to the drawing board, come up with a very, very board-driven plan. And if staff doesn't want to have it, then we won't build it.
I agree.
This is Michael. We have appreciate the input from everybody. We did we worked closely with the engineering committee on this, and I think we got input from a lot of different sources, a lot of different people who are going to be working. Had some input in what the ideal building would be, and I think Kevin did a great job of pulling all of that together. And we learned a lot in this process that's not a feasible option for us. That's why we're considering bringing it as an option to the board. And so we've completely shifted the approach with a lot of insight and expertise from the two contractors that we have on our engineering committee and Jeff's expertise. And so we've shifted the approach. And hopefully we can bring it in at a lot lower cost because I just don't think it would happen otherwise. So that is the path that we're on. And I also want to clarify that we'll be working with the board over the next couple of months to get the budget approved. But we're not proposing significant work on this until, like as Kevin said in his presentation, early next year. And even then it would be in consultation with the engineering committee and the board, to make sure we're in a comfortable financial position to take that on, even at the lower cost approach. So we're gonna get this done in the most cost effective way possible at some point. And evaluate when the right time to do that is in consultation with the board.
So we're looking at all these prices, Michael, just as the bid from this particular contractor, correct? Just to give us a ballpark figure or an idea of what it's going to cost us.
Actually, you can throw it away because we're not going there.
Yeah.
That was just to show you what we got back and why we're not taking that approach.
Okay, good.
Michael, you're going to switch gears to work on the budget. How much are you going to request in the budget to do this building based on what you proposed in the, doing the groundwork and buying the building, with the presentation that Kevin did?
Different ways we can go about it. We have a dedicated reserve fund set aside for this purpose. So our thought was, we put this on hold and we're not going to make any significant expenditures without, consultation with the board on it first. But if we're in a position to take that on, then we do the engineering for the building and the foundation, and we can and possibly even purchase the building with the funds that are dedicated for that purpose, which is somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000. So
it says 300 on the paperwork.
That could be used anywhere else in the budget, basically. It would only be things from that fund that was dedicated for this purpose, because we're already, we've been working a lot on the budget already, and we're having to make a lot of trade-offs. And so there is no room in the operating budget for any expenses on this project. I can assure you that. The only money that we would spend on this project would be from that reserve that is dedicated for this purpose.
Okay. Well, I also, and that 300 sounds good to me, but I also think having Jeff in the engineer committee, maybe do a special engineering committee meeting, and having Jeff be part of guiding engineering on, how we do this, and his presentation he just did. I think that should be in writing going forward and be very helpful.
Cindy, I think staff understands. I mean, what they did was they asked the rest of the, all the people that are going to occupy the building what their, what would be the best case scenario. What are all the cool things that we could have, and that's what they put out to bid. And we're not, as a board member, if we had the money, I wouldn't have approved that budget for that, because what we need is to make sure they have all the right tools and a safe environment to work. It doesn't have to have a standing seam roof. It doesn't have to look exactly like our headquarters building. It has to be a safe place for them to work. And that's really all I care about. But I think they understand that we can do it in a, basically, they're very simple projects. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, and
Let me say that, wait, let me say one thing, is that you spent the time and the money to put this out to RFP with all the wish list. And so for the next time we go about this, I think the engineering committee should sign off on the RFP prior to it being posted, just to make sure, it's going in the, what I see is the ideal plan of what Jeff said for this project.
and I'm confident we will. The staff understands what we have to do, and even we're going to have plenty of time, because truthfully, in this economic uncertainty, it'd be difficult to move forward with this building with the economic uncertainty that we have right now anyway. So we'll have some time to figure this out.
And we're going to work closely with the engineering committee on it. We went through this in great detail last week, which is how we came out of it with this new approach based on the input from the engineering committee, and every step of the way going forward will be in consultation with them.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments from directors?
Hang on a second here. Okay, can you hear me, Bertha? I don't know whether anybody has spoken with Darren with DRM Construction. He's been a really a good source for a lot of the work that CCWD has done in the last year and a half. He and his firm are certainly capable of doing all that grading and concrete work. And I bet that he would come in at 25% of what these other folks thought it was worth. So anyway, Kevin, if you've got Darren's number on your speed dial, give him a call.
Well, hopefully he would have been on the mailing list for.
Well, this went out to general contractors. I don't know whether DRM would have been on Roland's list of subcontractors, typical list of subcontractors. I doubt it. But, anyway, if individual members of the board know of qualified participants in this operation, we should bring their names forward. It's offensive to me to look at the individual line items there, and knowing that you can buy base rock for about $20 a yard across the road and have a line item say it's going to be 45. So if you look at one individual item like that, you can see that every line item is just inflated, really quite remarkably. So anyway, we've got a dump truck, don't we? Just haul it across the road.
Okay. Any other comments?
Bertha, can I say something? This is Charles.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate all the comments and the input from the committee. I know we really worked hard on this. Kevin did a stellar job pulling the bid documents together. I'm, really apologize that we were not able to deliver the project at this time that the district was hoping for, but we know it's really important to the district. So, we're going to keep working until we get it right. And I'm confident in the engineering committee process, and Kevin, has been, again, a great help, and we appreciate everybody's effort on it. So.
No, and we appreciate your and Kevin's work on this, and we're here for you. So just bring back the product.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me, shall we take a 5-minute break, please?
Okay.
Okay. See you at 2:35.
All right.